Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to Fantasy Football Today, DFS. My name is Sia Nejad, and of course, I'm always joined on Thursdays at 11 o'clock by Shoup and Mike McClure. We've got a 12-game slate. We've got our contest that is ready to go. It's only $5 to enter our FFT DFS contest. It's already in the YouTube chat, thanks to Nada, and it will be in the YouTube description, of course, and the podcast description. Go ahead and check that out right away. Meg, Mike, I want to get right to it. Normally, I would do salutations. We got a 12-game slate. We got more bye weeks next week, so we'll be able to kind of do some more stuff. But I want to get to all these games. That's what's important to me, you, and everybody else. We're going to start, and Meg, I'm going to start with you. The Dolphins and the Bills, a 49-point total. Dolphins getting 6 points up in Buffalo. What do you like in this one?
I think my favorite play in this is A-Chain. I always get his pronunciation wrong. I'm not sure if I'm ever saying it right, but his usage with Tua back in the lineup is great. Obviously, Mostert got those 2 rushing touchdowns, but his usage in the passing game we really like, and especially on a full point PPR site like DraftKings. I have a lot of interest there, and we just know how explosive he is. So he's my favorite play in this game, but I don't mind if you want to attack the other pass catchers from the Dolphins. And of course, I think Allen is always in play. I'm likely going to be, and we'll get to this later, but I'll likely be doing some cheaper stacks. But I mean, you could, of course, do Josh Allen in this game.
Mike, there's a lot of games to choose from this week that have high totals, and I've noticed totals like clicking up. And I think there's very few weather implications too. A lot of high-profile games. With that said, I mean, I do want pieces from this game. Meg mentioned Achane at 6,700. Tyreek Hill only went up $300. He's 7,300 in a likely negative game script. I mean, Keon Coleman got some interesting looks last week. Maybe he's working the short area a little more. He's only 5,400. Then Josh Allen, James Cook. Like, this is one of those things where we have to make a decision, right? We can't play every game. What are you playing in this one?
Yeah, I like Dolphins stacks a lot here. And it's not saying I think they win the game. I just think they find themselves in a situation where they might be trailing. And as Meg mentioned, Devon Achane's going to catch the football a ton. Like he as long as his body holds up, he's going to be out there, right? And as far as Tua and Tyreek, like they couldn't have run any worse than they did last week, especially Tua in terms of fantasy scoring, just the way they scored rushing touchdowns. I don't think that'll necessarily be there again. He was 28 for 38. That's 74% of passes completed. I thought he was fine. He still ran the football 3 times as well, 13 yards. Like I thought Tua was great despite 14.6 fantasy points. So I think there's definitely a path to him being over 20 very easily in that last game. And this projects as a very similar spot. I think that there's going to be opportunities. So I am very interested on the Miami side, despite leaning Buffalo pretty heavily to win the game still. I'm not finding myself on a ton of Buffalo guys. I know that Josh Allen is always appealing. Probably not going to get there, though. So I'm more interested in the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I know I mentioned Keon Coleman, but I'm ultimately probably out on Bills receivers. I just wanted to mention him as maybe a contrarian play. Meg, do you agree as far as, and I know you kind of mentioned the Bills, but as far as the Bills guys, largely out on them?
Yeah, they're so hard to pin down the receivers. You could go to James Cook if you wanted to play from, playing from the positive game script. You certainly could work that angle. And again, Josh Allen's always in play, but I'm a lot like Mike. I think the Bills win. I just don't see me getting there just because of price points. And so I have more interest in the Dolphins side.
All right, let's move along then to the next game. Sounds like Achane and Tyreek Hill, two popular players from that first game. Maybe not a popular game here. Saints at the Panthers. Saints favored by 7.5 walking into Carolina. 43.5 point total. It does look like Derek Carr is back. Alvin Kamara at 7,800 should be pretty popular. He should suck up a lot of volume, and obviously this Carolina defense, you can pretty much play anybody against them. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Are you on Alvin Kamara this week, and is there anybody else in this game that you like?
Yeah, I like the Saints side a lot. You get Derek Carr back. Olave should be there. Alvin Kamara's there. These guys are going to be extremely excited to have an offense again. So I really, look at last week. I know Bo Nix is not bad. He's actually quite good for a rookie and has a great coaching staff. But look at what Bo Nix is able to do to this defense. I mean, Bo Nix was essentially QB1 last week, and Carr's got the same opportunity. I know Carr doesn't have the rushing upside, but he's got a ton of upside in the passing game. So I like Carr a lot. I will be playing Carr. I'll be playing Olave, and I will be playing Alvin Kamara this week.
All right, so we're playing a lot of Saints, mainly because they're going against Carolina. Meg, how about you? Are you on Derek Carr at all? And are you, like, for me, I kind of want to just get Alvin Kamara and get out of this game. I don't want anybody on the Carolina side. I know Jalen Coker is going to be a popular play at 3,600. I don't hate that. I'm probably not getting there with Jalen Coker. I'll find other pay down options at receiver. But are you in on Kamara, and is there anybody else you're in on?
Yes, I'm in on Kamara. I'm in on any of the Saints because we joked at the beginning of the season that Washington has a historically bad defense. They're actually improving their pass rush. It's the Panthers have a historically bad defense. Basically, you circle whoever they're playing and target them any which way you want. So love Carr and Olave, love Kamara. I'm willing to approach the Saints with any of their skill players.
All right. I think we can move on from this game. Like I said, I'll be on Kamara. I think, listen, are we out on Chuba Hubbard? I do know you, obviously, you can run on the Saints.
You can, yeah.
You know, I think Jonathan Brooks is back this week. Miles Sanders getting some run here and there. Mike, real quick, in or out on Chuba Hubbard?
I'll say out. Like, yes, he can always get there, but I love Achane. I love Kamara, so we're already getting thin at running back, so I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. Can't play everybody. Meg, in or out on Chuba Hubbard, considering there's other people to play as well, of course.
Yeah, I think it's more, I don't mind Chuba Hubbard in this matchup. It's more there's, like what Mike said, there's too many other guys I like better in the price range.
Okay, let's go to the Patriots at the Titans. I'll just mention, I had my first pick of the week against the spread was the Titans. I got it at -3. Really like the Titans in this spot against the Patriots, regardless of whether it's Jacoby Brissett or Drake May. As far as the fantasy perspective, Meg, I'm not really interested in anybody, although, and again, we can't play every running back, so we're not going to recommend every running back. But I got to say, Tony Pollard at 6,800 certainly seems like he's in a good spot. I think Calvin Ridley, at 5,700 really had a game. I don't know if he's going to need to have that game this week against the Patriots, so I'm probably not jumping on him. I don't really like anybody on the Patriots side. Do you like anything in this game, Meg?
No, but pretty much just if you wanted to go back to Ridley, I don't hate it because he's going to be low owned, and we know that he's already had 2 massive spike weeks. I think they're going to be hard to predict when they're coming, but he does have. We see that that's in his bag, obviously, and then I don't mind Tony Pollard either. Am I going to get to them much? I don't know about that, but those would be the 2 considerations.
Mike, what about you? Where are you at on this game? Are you in on Tony Pollard, and are you willing to go back to Calvin Ridley, considering, he's clearly the alpha, and Mason Rudolph clearly finding him. I do want to point out Tajay Spears likely back in this game as well, but where are we at in this game, Mike?
Nowhere really. Like, if you're playing 150 or, at least 20 plus, then sure, Ridley's in the player pool. At that point, I guess Ramondre Stevenson probably could be still. The only thing I could get to the way I play would actually just simply be the Titans defense, 3,200. I think that home game, Patriots, just obviously we know they're not a good offensive team. So if you get any sort of turnover variance, you're looking pretty. So it'd be Titans defense, and that's it.
I just want to note there is still a chance May plays, correct? I think he practiced yesterday, so just pay attention to that. It could be Drake May.
Yeah, I heard it was a limited practice, and I don't really know what that means when you're in the concussion protocol. So something to monitor. I'll tell you what. If I'm trying to protect my rookie quarterback, I don't know that I roll him out against what I think is a very formidable Titans defense. But again, it's football. You only get 17 games, so I understand them playing him at the same time. If I had to guess, he doesn't play, but we'll have to wait. Good point. A good call out. We'll have to wait and see on that. All right, we got the Broncos and the Ravens. Broncos +9, and, listen, Ravens coming off a bad loss, 45.5 point total. I don't know that people are going to go back to Bo Nix, although I guess I don't hate it. I'm not doing it. He's 5,900. Javonte Williams, no thank you, at 6,200. Cortland Sutton, 5,400. Listen, you can pass on the Ravens, particularly if you got a negative game script. And then on the other side, you got Lamar Jackson, of course, and Derrick Henry and all these guys, and Deontay Johnson's on this team now. Mark Andrews, 4,200. Meg, I'm going to start with you. Who do you like in this one?
On the Ravens side, it's just Henry for me. Obviously, likely a very positive game script for him, and we know what he does in those situations. We know what he's done all season. So if you're paying up at running back, and I think he likely won't come at super high ownership either, Derrick Henry should always be in play in a super positive game script when they're favored like this. On the other side, and then, you really don't want to target the Broncos pass defense with Surtain. So on the other side, I don't mind Nix and Cortland Sutton. I likely won't get to Nix much because there's other quarterbacks I like better, but especially Cortland Sutton, a contrarian play at that price going against a pass defense that we know is vulnerable. I don't mind Cortland Sutton at all.
All right, Mike, what do you like in this game? And there is a question from Smith Waller, which I think is a good one. What do you think the outlook for Ravens wide receivers are now that Deontay Johnson is a Raven? I mean, I think this is a DFS question too. I don't want to play Zay Flowers anymore, and I don't want to play Rashad Bateman or even I think Mark Andrews. It's a different argument, but I think Deontay Johnson's a great receiver and complicates this situation. Are you playing anybody on the Ravens side?
Yeah, it complicates the situation considerably. They were already fringe to begin with. You had to be very careful picking your Zay Flowers spots. You never wanted to play Bateman really outside of 150 maxing or a showdown slate. It's going to be more of the same there. And I think it hurts everyone. I think it hurts Lamar. I think it hurts all of them. It might help them win more football games just by a slight amount. But I will also comment real quick, not related to DFS. I'm not so sure the offense was their problem. I would have rather seen them shore some things up defensively than grab another receiver. Now, what the receiver does give them for real football is it does give them depth that might be needed in the AFC playoffs where they run into Kansas City. That's really what that move was about. It was also potentially keeping Deontay Johnson off of the Kansas City Chiefs through some of the other means. So I think that there's a lot at play there. But as far as this game, I'm getting to nothing. I would caution against playing anything here. This is the definition of a must win for the Ravens, but also a get in, get out, stay healthy, because they've got a short week on deck against the Bengals with the opportunity to end the Bengals season in that game. And that is absolutely something they want to do. So I personally would just be completely off this.
Mike, I love what you said about Deontay Johnson and why they acquired him, because again, the conventional wisdom would be, hey, we need help on defense. Well, truth is, I think they were playing defense, but by acquiring an offensive player. All right, we got to get to the next game, which is one of the high flyer games, if not the high flyer game. There's a lot of high flyer games to come, but we're going to hear about it right after this message from our partners.
Saturday, CBS Sports with two big games. First, undefeated Army looks to ground rival Air Force. Then it's big time. Number 1 Oregon takes on defending champs Michigan. Saturday on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Smith Waller says, thank you for answering the question. You don't have to thank us, but if you did want to thank us, go to the podcast on Apple or Spotify, particularly Apple, scroll down to the bottom, hit 5 stars, and maybe write a few words about this show if you like it. We would all really appreciate that. All right, Falcons, Cowboys. This is a big total, 52. Cowboys, 2.5-point dogs. This is teetering between 2.5 and 3, just kind of rocking back and forth. Mike, I'm going to start with you. This is going to be a popular game for good reason. So I guess my question for you is, are you investing in the popular game here because it's popular for good reason, or are you maybe avoiding it?
I'm investing in it. I think it's popular for good reason, but it's also good to remember it is a 12-game slate, so ownership still will be relatively spread out. This would be a concerning situation if we had one of those 9 or 10-game slates that we get, and this was the game. It would drastically change things. I love both quarterbacks. I'm going to play Kirk Cousins. I'm going to play Dak. I love their alpha receivers, so it's going to be a lot of Drake London, a lot of CeeDee Lamb here for me. If you want to sprinkle in tight ends, I think it's okay to speculate, but for me, I'll just be looking at the 2 quarterbacks, looking at the alpha receivers, and then kind of getting out of the game mostly.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the passing yards props, Meg, for these quarterbacks. And, Dak Prescott, 264.5, Kirk Cousins, 246.5. And both of those guys are kind of inside the top 5 or 6 in terms of passing yards. So it makes sense that these guys are going to have pretty good spots here. I kind of like the over on Kirk Cousins, but I think the question becomes, are they going to be able to run the ball a lot? And are they going to defer to Bijan and Tyler Algier? What do you like in this game, Meg?
Yeah, I'm with Mike. I do have both quarterbacks in my pool. I think both quarterbacks and their alpha receivers. I like this game, from attacking both sides in the passing game. But I do like Bijan Robinson too. He's been playing excellent these last few games. So Bijan Robinson is definitely in my pool as well. So I would say Bijan, and then both quarterbacks with their alpha receivers, just like Mike said, are who is in my pool. But my favorite 2 are probably Bijan Robinson, CeeDee Lamb, and then you're going to have to make it work around that.
Let me ask you this, Megan. I'm going to do the same thing for you, Mike. And again, this is all within the context of you can't play everybody. So if you say no to this, then it's not that you hate the player. It's that you're just not playing them. All right. So we know CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Kirk Cousins, Dak, they're all certainly in play. I'm going to go yes or no with me on this. Rico Dowdle at 6K, Meg.
No.
Jake Ferguson at 5,100, Meg.
No.
Jalen Tolbert, 5,100.
Probably not.
Okay, Mike, same question for you. Rico Dowdle, 6K.
No shot.
Jalen
But
Tolbert.
the backfield's way too crowded now. They're all three going to touch the football now.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah,
so let's group these two together: Jalen Tolbert and Jake Ferguson.
Ferguson possibly just because of the positional, but no chance on Tolbert for me.
And I forgot to ask about Kyle Pitts at 4,900. Mike, go ahead.
Again, because of positional, I could get there, but it would be a double stack for sure. It would be if I'm playing Pitts, you've got to play Kirk Cousins, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I'll be playing because if you're playing Pitts, you need 2 touchdowns. You just probably do. So it would be Kirk Cousins, Drake London, and Kyle Pitts.
Are you going to have situations where you're double stacking Dak Prescott as well? And if so, who would be that second guy after CeeDee Lamb?
Probably not. It's probably going to be Dak to Lamb, and then just, if Dak goes off, hopefully it's really spread out, and hopefully it's someone just catching a 12-yard touchdown that didn't have 60, 70 yards in the game. I'm more likely to play Dak, Lamb, and Drake London than I am to have a second Cowboy.
Gotcha. Okay. I hope I'm pronouncing this name correctly. Jai Khalsa. I might have messed that up. Please let me know if I did, which is a really cool sounding name. Good morning, and thank you all for your hard work. Meg has been a fantastic addition to the team. Very, absolutely. Very nice of you to say. And Mike
Thank
and
you.
I obviously agree. So that's great. And it's a nice segue, Meg, into our 6-2 Commanders.
There we go.
Who are going into New York. New York probably without Tyrone Tracy, which is a very big deal in my opinion. This is a 44-point total. It's clicked up a little bit from 43 to 43.5, now to 44. Jaden Daniels, we're not sure if he's fully healthy. Probably not. I'm not going to be banking on him. He'll scamper around, but I'm not really banking on him scampering around enough to get the rushing equity we really want. On this Washington side, I don't know that I love anybody, but you know what I do love, Meg? I kind of love a low-cost Daniel Jones to Malik Neighbors, for example. So your comments on that, are you investing in anyone in this game?
I'm not investing on anybody on the Giants side. My interest is Brian Robinson on the other side in, again, a likely very positive game script. So my interest is Brian Robinson. I don't think he's going to get a ton of ownership just because of his price point. So that's where my interest is in this game. Because like you said, with Jaden Daniels, you have to pay for it. And, he still is playing banged up. So yeah, Brian Robinson for me.
Mike, are you investing in anyone in this game, and do you hate my stack? Or for the record, you could hate my stack, but like playing Daniel Jones naked, potentially.
Yeah, I don't mind it, honestly. I think that the Giants are going to be in a negative game script. Like they're going to throw the football a ton. So I think that it makes a little sense. I'm not getting anywhere here. As far as Daniels, I'm glad that he was healthy, able to play. Huge win that they were able to grab at the end there. Goes a long way for their odds of making the playoffs. Now, when I look at this particular spot, though, in my projections, I've docked Jaden Daniels a full 3.5 points off of where he was, in some of these other matchups. And as you mentioned, it's just simply all due to the rushing. So I think with the elevated price tag, there's just no value left when we can't reliably count on some of those rushing upsides.
Mike, stacking aside, are you in on Malik Neighbors at 7K?
I don't mind it. And the reason why I don't mind it is because I don't think he's going to have the ownership that he necessarily deserves. And the reason for that is just all the other receivers in that range, right? Like a lot of people, myself included, would rather play Drake London at 6,700. A lot of people would probably even rather take a shot on Tyreek Hill at 7,300. Chris Olave is back. CeeDee Lamb, you can just go on up from Neighbors to CeeDee Lamb. So I do think he gets squeezed in terms of ownership. It's not, he should have scored a touchdown in the last game. And 13 targets. And now there's a path to more targets with the injury report.
Yeah, absolutely. I love Malik Neighbors in this spot against Washington. All right, let's move on to the next game, Raiders at Bengals. By the way, for those of you that may be stumbling into the show and you're new, we do our cheat sheets at the end of the show and Mike's top 3 at each position at the end of the show. Probably some showdown thoughts on Thursday Night Football as well. But let's go to Raiders, +7 at the Bengals, 46.5 point total. I don't have a ton of interest in this game, Meg. I don't want to play Jamar Chase at 8,600 personally, but obviously I don't hate that play against the Raiders of all teams. We still don't know if T. Higgins is coming back and playing in this game. Gesicki's interesting if he's not, in my opinion. Jacoby Myers on the other side, I kind of like at 5,300 in a likely negative game script. And Alexander Madison, definitely the starter, 5,700. pretty price effective there. Anything you like in this one?
Really just the cheap piece of Mike Gesicki, the targets he's getting when Higgins isn't there. And I'll say that's if Higgins is out. So if Higgins is out, I do have interest in going back to Gesicki and his target share.
And Mike, I forgot to mention Brock Bowers. He's a flat 6K. I mean, again, I think Bowers, the implied total for the Raiders, it's around 20. It's not great, but it's not bad. I think Bowers and Jacoby Myers suck up a ton of the target share, especially if they're in a negative game script. I do want to point out Cincinnati's implied total's almost 27. That's not nothing. So if you can find the right pieces on Cincinnati, you can fly. Where are you at in this one?
Mostly Mike Gesicki for now. It's clear cut to me. 3,100, he's way too cheap because he's basically going to be a wide receiver. He's basically wide receiver 2 if Higgins is out. I lean towards Higgins not playing. I lean towards the Bengals season essentially being over. I do think they win this game, but I think that we do see them put up points. So I'm going to be playing Gesicki here. There's one other guy that I had a decent amount of.
Is it Yoshivas?
He's projecting well. I was a little frustrated with the role last week for sure. I believe it was Chase Brown. Chase Brown is someone that's been involved in the Chase Brown. I've got a lot of Chase Brown here showing up in the early runs. Some of it is the price point, 5,900. Some of it is just he's got true dual threat ability, even though he hasn't flashed it a ton this season. I think this is a matchup where he could.
I think Chase Brown's a really sneaky play, and I think he's very talented. He can get to the next level and run for a touchdown on any given moment, particularly against the Raiders. All right, let's go to the Chargers and the Browns. Chargers -1.5 at the Browns, 43-point total. Listen, we can go right. My stack last week, what was it, right? It was Jameis Winston to Cedric Tillman. That worked out. Unfortunately for me, I did okay in DFS last week, but like the high flyer picks that I had, like your A.J. Browns and your Tyreek Hills and Jamar Chases, they all kind of fell flat. So, I was set up to have an amazing day because my low-cost stack was excellent. But, this is how it goes. I thought the build was right. It just didn't kind of work out for me. But Jameis Winston, 5,400. Cedric Tillman, 4,300. David Njoku, 5,500. And then, of course, Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore certainly relevant. J.K. Dobbins, 7K. That's too much for me. We got to see if QJ is back in this one. Ladd McConkey, only 5,600. Mike, are we going anywhere in this one? It's a pretty low total.
Yeah, it's a pretty low total. Two on paper, very good defenses, really, and potentially a rejuvenated Browns team after the quarterback change and the win. I can't really get anything. If you want to play David Njoku, I'm never going to get mad at you for that. But you want to take a shot on Nick Chubb? He's only 5,800. I don't think anything really I can get to. And then, of course, if you're playing mass multi-entry, you could definitely take the pass catchers on the other side. Like Ladd McConkey he's a fantastic player. I think he's closer to a 7K player than a 5K player. So I do, you're starting to see the price point elevate. I think he's phenomenal though.
Yeah, Ladd McConkey is definitely going to be that guy for the Chargers with Justin Herbert for some time to come. Meg, are we anywhere in this one? Will Dissly only 3,100. There's a lot of low-cost options, but this is also a potentially low-scoring game. Are you playing anybody?
Yeah, ironically, with a very low total, I do actually have a lot of interest in this game. And it's mainly because the Chargers, since they're bye, have a much higher pass rate over expectation. They're passing a lot more. Justin Herbert had a lot more attempts. He's just getting a lot more yards and opportunities to put up fantasy points and doing so. Love Ladd McConkey, too. So my favorite stack is Justin Herbert and Ladd McConkey. Throw in Will Dissly, run it back with a Cedric Tillman, and you can do about anything you want. And so that's what I love about this game is the price points of these guys. And still, again, with hopefully a higher pass rate for the Chargers and the price points, and then you run it back with a guy like Tillman, you just have a lot that you can do. And then I will throw out that it's not a good matchup for Chubb at all. However, he's getting more work each week. And, from just some tape bros that I watch that know more than I do about X's and O's, I guess the cuts he's making do give you hope that, maybe each week you'll see a little more Nick Chubb. So that would be a very contrarian play if you wanted to go that way.
We do have a question. Mike, I'll bounce this off of you. I think the answer to this is yes. Scott Kobe says, this is a different question from Scott Kobe. Is a Winston and Tillman stack with a McConkey bring back something you like?
I don't mind it. Yeah, it's not going to be my favorite. It's not going to be something I really aggressively get to. But yeah, if you like the game at all and think that we could see some scoring, I think that's definitely a good way to look.
I will say this. I mean, clearly Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore and David Njoku are going to get targets too. I do think Tillman is definitely the best receiver. I'm not including Njoku in that receiver conversation of the three, but there are going to be games where Cedric Tillman gets 3 catches for, 37 yards and Jerry Jeudy and Elijah Moore are getting the catches, maybe 4 or 5 catches for 50, 60 yards. Again, I think Tillman's going to be on the better end of that. And I don't mind that stack because it allows you to do a lot of stuff. But just keep that in mind. Cedric Tillman's not always going to have this type of game. Disgleaming Gleam says, happy Halloween, longtime lurker. You guys rock. I love that. And I love that you lurk, but bring it in here and talk to us because we like that even more. Thanks for watching the show. All right, let's get to our first 4 o'clock game, the Bears at the Cardinals. There's a lot of high-scoring 4 o'clock games. This is on the bottom end of those, but still has some scoring potential. Mike, I'm going to start with you. Bears coming off a pretty bad loss there. I mean, even though they probably should have lost that game anyway. DeAndre Swift against the Cardinals looks pretty good to me. Kind of a sneaky play at 6,400. On the other side, James Conner, 6,600. Not super interested in the receivers in this game. What do you like?
I like James Conner a little bit. It is a difficult matchup on paper against the Chicago defense, but that's typically a spot where I would expect him to be heavily involved because it's going to be a difficult matchup for Kyler, right? And it's going to be a difficult matchup for the passing game down the field. So I think you can pretty reliably count on 25 touches again, between the run and pass game and 25 touches here with someone that they still do, Kyler. I think a lot of people are afraid to play James Conner at times because Kyler does have that rushing equity, particularly in the red zone. But this to me projects as a spot where it's going to be heavily lean on Conner. So I do like him. He is firmly in my player pool.
Meg, any interest in this game?
I like Mike's point on James Conner. I don't mind that. Of course, I think you can play Swift. I'm a little bit off Swift just because it looks like he's coming in at really high ownership. So I'd rather go to some other running backs in that price point. So I think those guys are in play, but I don't think I'm getting to them.
All right. I was on a DeAndre Swift over rushing yards prop last week, and it hit thanks to that run. I do like potentially his rushing prop, but also his longest rush prop because he tends to be that guy that has minimal gains and then ends up breaking one. I think I'm largely off of this game, although I do like the arguments for Conner and Swift. Let's move on to the Jags and the Eagles. This one really interesting to me. Eagles have almost a 27-point implied total. Jags have some really major injury issues that we still need to see, like who's playing, whether it's Brian Thomas or Gabriel Davis. Parker Washington could, in theory, be the lead receiver here at 3,600. Evan Ingram at 5,300. But, Mike, it's the guys on the Eagles side. I'm curious if you're paying up for these guys because I can't imagine a lot of people are. I probably am not. You got Jalen Hurts at 7,800, A.J. Brown 8,100, Devontae 6,800. Where are you at in this one?
I'm mostly nowhere in this one. If you wanted to play any of those guys, I think they're great pivots off of CD and Drake, but I still think the volume ultimately is going to win out for CD Lamb and Drake London. So I'm not going to get there. I don't mind it if you really are playing lots of lineups or have some real strong conviction, but I don't think it's the best spot for it.
Yeah, Meg, I didn't even mention Saquon Barkley. Not really the best matchup for him. He's 8,200. I think a contrarian, what I think will be a contrarian Hurts A.J. Brown stack makes sense, but it really makes your lineup difficult to build. Are you playing anybody in this game on either side?
Yeah, obviously the passing game has an excellent matchup against the Jaguars, so don't hate it if you want to go there. It's definitely in my pool in consideration, or maybe just playing A.J. Brown and to have this monster game in the passing game. But I think any Eagles are in play for me, but again, it's more, am I going to be able to get to them because of their price point? But that's going to make them probably likely lower owned. So I think that's a consideration. You could play Ingram just to get the volume with guys banged up, but I'm likely paying down at tight end. So for me, I get having a Hurts AJ Brown stack. I don't know if I'll get there because of price. Maybe just have a little AJ Brown or Barkley.
Yeah, maybe this is fit for the afternoon slate. If you're playing a few lineups, you do a Hurts AJ Brown stack, you bring it back with maybe double it up. Again, you're only talking 4 games here with Evan Ingram and maybe Parker Washington if Brian Thomas and Gabriel Davis are banged up. I think that type of thing could work, but on the main slate, probably not playing it. All right, so we went through 2 of the 4 o'clock games. We got 2 more that have high totals. We're going to talk about them right after this message from our partners.
Love football, this is the best time of the year.
This is as big as it gets.
The stuff of absolute dreams.
We're back on Fantasy Football Today, DFS. If you're in the chat right now, scroll to the top and sign up for our $5 Fantasy Football Today DFS contest. It's only 200 deep, so get in there now before it fills up. All right, we got the Rams, Mike, going to Seattle. It's a 48.5 point total. Rams walking in as a, again, 1 point favorite here. A lot to like in this game. What do you like?
Yeah, there is a lot to like. I mean, can we talk about Puka Nacua and how insane he was in that return? He played way more than I thought he would. The timing didn't really seem to matter because he's just so good at playing football. I think this is a good matchup for him. I don't think he's going to get played because we're so used to, Puka Nacua, playing alongside Cooper Kupp as well. Like, it doesn't seem that exciting to pay $7,200 for it, but he played like a $9,000 receiver in that game. You have to maybe think the efficiency comes down a little bit at some point, but I think he's a fantastic tournament play. I think he's a great pivot off of Tyreek or Drake London. Otherwise, I'm not finding myself getting to a ton in this game, which is a little weird because of the total in it. We'll see on DK Metcalf and some of the other players, but yeah, I mean, a little Kenneth Walker, but I'm scrolling very far down in this player pool just to get any names in this game.
Yeah, Meg, this one's interesting because DK Metcalf, like, even if he plays, is he 100%? Like, do I want to pay the $6,500, which is a great price, don't get me wrong, for DK Metcalf, but I don't know that I want to get there on the Seahawks side, although it's potentially a good bounce back for Kenneth Walker. Kyren Williams, 8,000. I mean, I do like him, but Meg, these players are expensive. Are you playing any of them?
Yeah, I have some interest in these guys, but like you said, they're expensive. I have interest in Walker. I have interest in Kyren Williams in a good matchup. I have interest in, as Mike said, Puka. So I have interest. It's just, am I going to be able to get to them because of their price points? They'll be in my player pool, but I don't know how often I'll get to them just simply because of price.
Yeah, that's totally fair.
And maybe a good 4 p.m., like you said, from the last game. Maybe just kind of reserve these guys for your afternoon only and use them there.
Yeah, and I think you could take a chance on a Tyler Lockett or JSN, but I just don't think I'm going to be interested there. I'll find a way to get Kyren Williams in some of my lineups, though. This Seattle situation not going super well for them, so maybe attack them for through the running game or the passing game with Puka or Cooper. All right, the last of the 4 o'clock games, then we're going to get to our cheat sheet and our top 3 at each position. Meg, I'll start with you. We got the Lions at the Packers. Lions laying 3.5 points, 47.5 point total. It's looking to me like it's going to be Malik Willis as opposed to Jordan Love. Listen, on the Lions side, it's always kind of hard, right? Because who's going to get it? Is it Gibbs? Is it Montgomery? Amon-Ra St. Brown? Tim Patrick getting involved with Jamison Williams out? Sam Laporta getting involved with Jamison Williams out? Khalif Raymond? Hard for me to get there with the Lions. How about you?
Yeah, it's just tough for me to get there with the Lions. And I just... again, I feel like a broken record today, but I just like other spots better.
Yeah.
They do lean on the Packers side. They did lean heavily on Josh Jacobs when it's Malik Willis. So I don't mind going to Josh Jacobs, even though we don't like attacking the Lions' run defense. I mean, it literally didn't matter who Josh Jacobs was going up against. They will just lean heavily on him. So I do have a little bit of interest in Jacobs for that reason.
All right. Mike, anything on the Lions or Packers side?
I haven't gotten anywhere yet. I need just more clarity on it, and things might start to emerge. Like, again, Jacobs is not bad, but the price points come up, and probably not going to get anywhere here.
Let me ask you this. If Malik Willis is the quarterback, Mike, are you interested in playing him?
I don't think so. I think that both sides are going to run the football. I don't know. Like, at 5,500, I think it's okay. Like, he's shown that upside really once against Tennessee. I mean, like, I think that the Lions are a team that, because it's a divisional opponent, I know they're planning for Jordan Love. I still think that they will have a good game plan to try and limit him. So I would much rather pay $100 more for Derek Carr against the Carolina Panthers.
All right, yeah, and I agree with that. We got a lot of people saying, hey, hit the like button. Absolutely appreciate you all doing my job, because I don't do it very well. I really appreciate you guys kind of jumping in there, because we do need you to hit the like button. And somebody even said, Smith Waller said, also review this podcast. We would very much appreciate that. And I'm sure you would appreciate us getting to our cheat sheet So let's do that right now. Meg, you know the drill. We do our stack, our chalk buy, chalk fade, contrarian, and value play. So you have the floor.
Yeah, I had already teased it or talked about it, but my stack is Justin Herbert, Lad McConkey. If you want to throw in a cheap Will Dissly, don't mind that. And again, there are some cheap run backs on the Brown side that can then let you do basically whatever you want with the stud plays. Hopefully our stud plays come through for us. I'll just interrupt because I had the same issue. That was really, really bad last week. Okay, chalk buy for me is Alvin Kamara. Just an elite matchup against the Panthers. They've got two of their offensive linemen back as well, I believe. Chalk fade. Don't hate playing DeAndre Swift. I don't just love it at this ownership, and there's just other guys I like more. Contrarian play for me would be Cortland Sutton. Looks to be coming in at low ownership with a good matchup against the Ravens, likely playing in a negative game script. And then my value plays are any cheap tight ends. There are so many tight ends that I like under 3.5K. Will Dissly, Mike Gesicki, Noah Fant, Jonnu Smith, like you name them, I like them. Again, that's allowing me to get the CeeDee Lambs, Bijan Robinsons, Drake Londons, all these other AJ Browns of the world.
All right. I'll start with my stack. It's Daniel Jones to Malik Neighbors. Listen, I hope this is – I'm noticing the over-under going up just a little bit here and there, and I think we could see some fireworks on the Giants side. I still expect Washington to win the game. My chalk buy is Tyreek Hill. I don't think he's going to be mega chalk, but people are going to probably play him in a likely negative game script, only going up 300 from last week's price of 7,000. My chalk fade is going to be Chuba Hubbard. It's a good matchup for him, obviously. I'd rather play the chalk of Alvin Kamara like Meg is doing, so I'll probably play some Alvin Kamara, but probably no Chuba Hubbard. My contrarian play, Mike's got me convinced. Puka Nacua. Maybe it's the afternoon slate only where I really kind of emphasize it, but I think I'm going to play some Puka Nacua regardless, even on the main slate. And my value play, I think there's a couple I could have gone with here. This one, Jacoby Myers, 5,300, not a super value. I mean, again, Cedric Tillman, I think, is in play. Some of those receivers we talked about that are in the 3 or 4K range, but I'll go with Jacoby Myers. I think it's a good setup for him as well. All right, Mike, top 3 at each position. We start at quarterback.
2 of them in the same game. It's going to be Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott. I think this game goes back and forth, big time shootout. And then Derek Carr, assuming he's out there. I like Derek Carr. I think that if there's any get right spot in the NFL, it's clearly the Carolina Panthers defensively. And he's got the weapons. Chris Olave is back. The reason why I like this, it takes away a little bit of the stuff with Shaheed, right? They would throw the deep ball to Shaheed. Now it's just going to be peppering targets to Olave and Alvin Kamara. So I like this for Derek Carr because the stacking partners become a lot more clear.
Yeah, it's starting to feel like it's going to be an Alvin Kamara game in a big way too, with the targets and the rushing against Carolina. Running back, what do we got?
Devon Achane, number 1. I just like a big Alvin Kamara game. It's going to be a big Achane game against the Buffalo Bills. So I like him a lot. Number 2, I've listed Chase Brown for the Bengals. This is contingent on T. Higgins not playing. I just think it shores things up and gets him involved in the passing game. I've listed James Conner, number 3, because of the volume, 25 touches, I think, in this game. And then my honorable mention, and the guy I'm still playing a lot, is Alvin Kamara. He's going to be extremely popular. He's more expensive, but you got to mention him for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, just like before you get to receiver, because I said I'm going to do the Daniel Jones stack. Daniel Jones, Neighbors, Kamara, and Achane are definitely going to be in at least one of my single entry line as a start. And it's kind of expensive, don't get me wrong, so I'll have to find some value in other places, but it's very, very doable. Just a side note there. All right, wide receiver, Mike.
Give me my big 3 this week. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, and Chris Olave. Olave is going to be back. He's got his quarterback. No Shaheed out there to split and take away some of his equity. So I love these big 3. And I know that sound like big names. How can you get them all in a lineup? It's very, very easy this week. I'm staring at a lineup on my screen that Achane, Olave, London, Lamb, all in the same lineup very, very easily. So love CeeDee Lamb, Drake London, Chris Olave.
All right. And we talked about, or Meg talked about, some tight end value. That's where you're leading. Talk to us about your 3 tight ends.
Mike Gesicki, number 1, by far for me. Brock Bowers 2, and Jake Ferguson 3. Jake Ferguson slowly coming around to the idea that I probably need him a lot here if I'm playing so much Dak and Kirk Cousins. I think he's going to be heavily involved. But for me, Gesicki is $2,000 too cheap for the role that he's going to have.
And you might have just said this, but that is contingent upon Higgins being out. And my question really is, if Higgins is playing, would you still play Gesicki?
I would still play Gesicki if Higgins is playing. If Higgins plays, I am not convinced he lasts the entire game.
Fair enough. Okay. By the way, did you notice, if you're watching us on YouTube, when he said Gesicki and too cheap and all that, whatever Mike was saying, did you see me, Meg, like tilt my head down and write with my G2 Pilot pen here? I'm like, because now I'm trying to build a lineup, right? I'm committed to the D Jones Neighbors thing, at least for some lineups, a Kamara Achane, and then now I've written down Gesicki for price relief. Maybe that Cardinals defense. I think they're 2,600. Anyway, okay. Speaking of defense, we'll probably see a lot of it tonight, Mike. Texans, Jets, maybe some showdown thoughts. But before we get there, Meg, I always have to ask you, who's winning this game? Texans are like 1.5 point dogs to the Jets.
I mean, I feel like this has burned me many times for saying this, but I do think the Jets win at home tonight. I feel like maybe they play a little looser. You know, what do they have to lose at this point? Everybody's so that's my okay. Is it Mike's pick? If it's Mike's
it's
pick,
also my pick.
Okay,
yes.
if I'm in line with Sia and Mike, I feel like I'm doing well. So I love
one
it.
last ride.
There we go. There we go.
I've said it twice already this season, but one last
Let's
ride.
Let's go.
Me and Mike have taken some hits on the Jets so far this season, just a couple, but like we're back on them one more time. This show is going to be a Jets show tonight. But Mike, from a DFS perspective, anybody you're leaning on, whether it's a value play or high price plays, types of builds, 4-2 stacks, what's it going to be tonight?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be lots of running backs. You're going to see heavy ownership on Breece Hall and Joe Mixon. I like John Mechie a little bit. Mechie's a guy that's just got extreme variance, right? You know, before the injury in college football, we were talking about him essentially being an absolute lock to be a number one wide receiver in the NFL. I think he still possesses some of that deep down. The price point is fine and in check. I think the Texans are going to kick some field goals here. They've got an excellent kicker in Fairbairn. I love him tonight. I know it's fun to jump on and say we love kickers in showdown slates, but I do love the kicker in the showdown slate. And then, you know, if you want to roll back the clock one more time for the legend that is Robert Woods, I don't hate that as well. But for me, it's likely going to be a lot of speculation on John Mechie.
Yeah, I was actually, Mike, you recall, I was looking for props on John Mechie during the early edge at 10, and they weren't out. Maybe they're out now. But I do think he's got ladder potential. And if you want to play the narrative game, he's really good friends with CJ Stroud. You might be like, well, yeah, they're on the same team. No, but they're like really, really close. And so with Stephon Diggs out and with Nico Collins out and Xavier Hutchinson not really being that dude, and you only got Tank Dell on the other side, it does seem like the opportunity, kind of like a one-shot Jameis Winston paying homage to Eminem last week. I feel like him and CJ Stroud are having that conversation. Like, this could be my game to show everybody that I'm here in the NFL. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here for now, but we got to get out of here. Meg Shoup, great show. Mike McClure, great show. Let's see some green screens. It's already week 9 for Fantasy Football Today DFS, and you know the drill. We're going to see some green screens this weekend, hopefully, but we're definitely going to see you next Thursday at 11 o'clock. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend. Have a great week. This is Fantasy Football Today DFS.